There comes a moment in your life when something inside you becomes unbearably loud. Not chaotic, not dramatic, just loud enough that you can no longer ignore it. And it isn't a scream, it isn't even a voice. It's more like a quiet vibration, a tremor deep within your chest, a subtle shift in the air around you, a sense that something is trying to reach you, not from the outside but from the depths of your own unconscious. Most people never hear it. They drown it in noise, in effort, in obsession, in the desperate need to fix and solve and control. They bury it under relationships that drain them, under goals they don't truly want, under the pressure to keep moving simply because standing still feels too uncomfortable. But if you're hearing this now, if these words feel strangely familiar, it means you're one of the few who have reached that quiet threshold, the moment when the universe reveals a secret you cannot talk about, a secret you must protect with your silence, a secret that once understood will change the entire direction of your life. Carl Jung tried to warn us about this. He understood that the greatest transformations never happen through force or willpower or frantic action. They happen through a rupture in the psyche, a breaking point where the old identity begins to dissolve and something ancient begins to rise. Most people call it burnout, or losing motivation, or feeling lost, but Jung saw it for what it really is, the moment when your unconscious stops asking politely and begins to take the lead. You feel it as a kind of exhaustion, a strange heaviness, a sense that no matter how much you try, how much you push, how much you chase, something refuses to budge. At first, you think it's failure, then you think it's punishment, and then when you've exhausted every logical explanation, you begin to suspect the truth. Something inside you is trying to shift. Something in your life is misaligned. And the harder you push, the more resistance you create. This is where the secret begins. Because what you were taught about effort and control and making life happen is the very thing that is blocking you. What you were taught about discipline and grind and force is the exact opposite of what your soul is asking for. You think you need to do more, but life responds only when you stop. You think you need to fix everything, but nothing begins to heal until you allow it. You think you need answers, but answers come only to the mind that is finally quiet enough to hear them. Jung called this the moment of inner realignment, a process that begins silently, often painfully, and always in darkness. A process that feels like losing control, when in reality, it is the first time you are finally surrendering to the truth of who you are. And here is the part they never tell you. Once you understand this secret, you must keep your mouth shut. You cannot explain it. You cannot justify it. You cannot announce it. Because the moment you speak it too soon, the power begins to leak. The shift retreats. The unconscious goes silent again. So before anything else happens, before clarity, before transformation, before alignment, there is silence. A sacred kind of silence, a protective silence, a silence that marks the beginning of everything that will come next. And if you're hearing this, it means your beginning is already underway. Most people spend their entire lives trapped in a quiet kind of suffering, not the dramatic kind, not the visible kind, the kind that sits behind the ribs like a dull weight, the kind you learn to carry so well that you almost forget it shouldn't be there. You wake up with it, you go to work with it, you fall asleep next to it, and slowly, without noticing, you begin to build your whole identity around it. You call it responsibility, you call it ambition. You call it just the way life is. But underneath every label, it is the same thing, a mind that cannot stop running, and a heart that never feels safe. You chase things because slowing down feels dangerous. You fill your days because silence feels suffocating. You make plans because the emptiness behind every unplanned moment terrifies you. And so you run, and run, and run, and run. At first it feels like movement. But after a while, it begins to feel like drowning. You chase success, not because you desire growth, but because you fear insignificance. You chase love, not because your heart is open, but because the thought of being alone feels unbearable. You chase money, not because you want abundance, but because scarcity has carved itself into your nervous system. You chase recognition, not because it fulfills you, but because without it you don't know who you are. And all the while, you convince yourself you're being productive, that you're building something, that you're working on yourself. But if you're honest, brutally, painfully honest, you'll notice something. None of it brings peace. None of it quiets the noise inside your skull. None of it fills the hollow ache in your chest. You move faster, but you feel heavier. You accomplish more, but you feel emptier. You do everything right, but something still feels terribly wrong. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever asked yourself why the moments of fulfillment fade almost as quickly as they arrive? Why every victory feels good for a day, and then suddenly, it's gone? Why every achievement demands another one just to keep the fear away? It's because you're no longer chasing goals, you're running from yourself, from the unresolved pain, from the childhood wounds, from the part of you that never felt enough, from the silence that exposes everything you've been avoiding. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. He said that what you run from lives in your shadow, and the shadow does not disappear just because you look the other way. It follows, it grows, it whispers through your thoughts. It leaks into your choices. You think you're choosing your goals freely, but are you? Or are you trying to outrun the voice that keeps telling you you're not enough unless you prove it every single day? You think you want that person, that job, that lifestyle. But is it truly desire? Or is it fear disguised as ambition? You think you're striving for a better life. But maybe, just maybe, you're terrified of the stillness where all your unresolved truths would finally catch up with you. This is the human struggle. The relentless effort to control what cannot be controlled, fix what is not broken, earn what should be felt, prove what was never in question. And because you think movement equals safety, you begin to believe a lie, that if you stop, everything will fall apart. But the truth is far more painful, and far more freeing. Everything is already falling apart. But you're moving so fast, you don't notice. Your relationships feel heavy. Your conversations feel hollow. Your goals feel forced. Your days blur into each other like a long corridor with no doors. You keep trying to make it work, to hold things together, to pretend the cracks aren't spreading, but you feel it. You feel the instability in every area of your life. You feel the exhaustion behind every task. You feel the tension between who you are and who you pretend to be, and the most honest part of you. The part you keep pushing down is whispering the truth. You cannot keep going like this. Not because you're weak, not because you're failing, but because your soul is no longer willing to participate in the illusion. This isn't collapse. This isn't defeat. This is the first sign of awakening. The struggle isn't the problem. The struggle is the sign that something deeper is preparing to emerge. You think you're breaking down, but in reality, you're breaking open. There is a moment, somewhere between exhaustion and clarity, when you begin to wonder if maybe the problem isn't your life, but the way you've been trying to live it. You've tried everything, haven't you? More effort, more discipline, more planning, more control, more self-improvement, more strategies, more chasing, but nothing sticks, nothing settles, nothing feels solid. It's as if the harder you push, the more reality pushes back. The more desperately you reach, the faster everything slips through your fingers. The more intensely you focus on what you want, the further it seems to drift away. Why? Carl Jung understood something most people never realize. You cannot create a life that contradicts your inner state, not through force, not through action, not through willpower, because you don't attract what you want. You attract what you unconsciously are. This is the part nobody teaches you. Because it is easier to tell you to work harder than to ask you to look inward. It is easier to motivate you than to help you meet the parts of yourself you've spent years avoiding. It is easier to praise effort than to confront truth. But the truth remains: your life is not responding to your desires. It's responding to your wounds. You think you're manifesting from vision, but you're manifesting from fear, from scarcity, from the hidden places inside you that whisper, "I am not safe. I am not enough. I am not whole until something outside of me completes me." You can fool your conscious mind. You can force yourself to think positively. You can repeat affirmations until your voice goes numb. But your unconscious, your shadow, does not care about your conscious intentions. It reveals itself through your choices, your patterns, your relationships, your desires, your obsessions, your impulses. It reveals itself through the things you chase and the things you fear losing. It reveals itself through the people you are drawn to, even when they hurt you. It reveals itself through the situations you keep recreating, even when you swear you've grown. Your shadow is not subtle, it is patient. It will wait until you are tired, until you are frustrated, until you are confused, until you are vulnerable enough to finally see it. And when that moment arrives, you realize something that feels both devastating and liberating. The life you have built is perfectly shaped around the parts of yourself you refuse to face. Your ambition is shaped around your insecurity. Your relationships are shaped around your abandonment wounds. Your goals are shaped around your need for validation. Your actions are shaped around your fear of stillness. This is why nothing works, not because you're cursed, not because you're unlucky, not because the universe is ignoring you, but because your conscious desires are in direct conflict with your unconscious beliefs. You say you want love, but you don't trust it. You say you want wealth, but you expect loss. You say you want peace, but you are addicted to chaos. You say you want change, but you cling to what hurts because it feels familiar. So life listens to the part of you that is the loudest, and the loudest part is always the unconscious. And here is the part that most people never understand: effort cannot override misalignment. You can fight your way through a door, but if you're standing in front of the wrong door, no amount of force will open it. This is why the universe keeps blocking you, not as punishment, but as protection, as redirection, as a way of saying stop. You're building a life that does not match your soul. You interpret it as failure, as stagnation, as defeat, but it is none of those things. It is the beginning of truth. Because the moment you finally realize that more effort will not fix your life, something inside you breaks open, and for the first time you become available for the secret that comes next. There is a point in your journey where life becomes strangely quiet. Not peaceful, not gentle, just quiet in a way that feels almost unnatural, like the air is holding its breath around you, like something is watching, like something is waiting. This is the moment when the secret begins to reveal itself, not through signs in the sky, not through answers in books, not through sudden epiphanies, but through absence, through the collapse of everything you used to rely on, through the fading of the old identity that once felt so solid. People think secrets are revealed with clarity, but Jung knew the truth. The deepest revelations come disguised as emptiness. Because emptiness is the space where the unconscious finally becomes audible. And if you are here reading this, hearing this, resonating with this, it means the unconscious is trying to speak through you. But here is the part that will make your mind recoil. The secret is not something you learn, it is something you stop doing. It is the moment you realize that all your striving, controlling, planning, forcing, everything you thought was necessary, was the very thing blocking the life you were meant to live. The secret is surrender, but not the weak kind, not the kind that comes from defeat, the kind that comes from recognition that you were never in control the way you imagined, recognition that life is not something you push into shape, it is something you align with. Recognition that your frantic effort has been a way of avoiding the truth of yourself. And so the universe brings you here to this threshold where the only step forward is the one your ego cannot tolerate. Do nothing, not inaction, not laziness, not passivity. Do nothing means stop interfering with what your soul is trying to create. Stop interrupting the process with fear. Stop forcing outcomes that were never meant for you. Stop overthinking the guidance that has already been given. It means silence. It means stillness. It means letting the unconscious, the part of you that actually knows, take its rightful place. Because the unconscious has been leading you all along, through your desires, through your frustrations, through your patterns, through your losses, through every moment that didn't make sense until now. And when the unconscious finally becomes louder than your fear, you feel a shift, subtle but unmistakable. You stop chasing. You stop explaining. You stop announcing. You stop justifying. You simply exist in a state of quiet knowing. And this is where the real danger lies. Because once you understand this secret, once you begin to live from this place of inner alignment, the urge to share it becomes overwhelming. You want to tell people, you want to help them. You want to explain what's happening, but you must not yet. Here is the most important part. Your transformation must be protected by silence. If you speak too soon, the energy dissipates. If you share too early, others project their fear onto you. If you reveal your shift before it stabilizes, the old identity pulls you back. Your unconscious needs solitude. It needs darkness, like a seed pushing quietly through the soil. It needs the safety of your inner world before it can bloom in the outer one. This is why the mystics stayed silent. This is why Jung spoke in symbols. This is why your intuition tells you to withdraw, because the transformation happening inside you is fragile, raw, unformed. It cannot withstand the noise of other people's doubts, opinions, or insecurities. So you remain quiet, not because the secret is shameful, but because it is powerful, and power grows in silence. It gathers strength beneath the surface. It crystallizes. It becomes undeniable, until the day comes when you no longer need to speak it, because you have become it. There comes a moment, after the silence has settled inside you, when something begins to shift so subtly you almost miss it. Not a breakthrough, not a revelation, just a loosening, a softening, a faint sense that the weight you've carried for so long doesn't cling the way it used to. Transformation never enters with noise. It arrives like dawn, slowly, quietly, almost imperceptibly, until the darkness around you has changed without you realizing how. The first sign is internal. You stop fighting yourself. The second sign is emotional. You stop reacting the way you once did. The third sign is instinctive. You no longer chase what used to pull you in with magnetic force. People think change happens through effort, through discipline, through force of will, but real transformation, the kind Jung spoke of, happens when the unconscious becomes stronger than the patterns that once controlled you. You begin to see your life from a new vantage point. The same problems appear different. The same memories feel lighter. The same people no longer have access to the parts of you they once fed on. Something invisible has shifted inside you. And what's remarkable is that nothing external has changed. Your job is the same. Your relationships look the same on paper. Your circumstances haven't rearranged themselves yet. But you have. And in doing so, everything around you begins to respond differently. You start choosing from clarity instead of fear. You start resting without guilt. You start speaking less and understanding more. You start listening to your intuition, that quiet pulse beneath the noise, and you find that it was right the entire time. It's not a dramatic awakening. It's not a cinematic rebirth. It's something far more profound. A return to the self you abandoned. A return to the softness you buried. A return to the inner knowing that was always there, hidden beneath years of noise and effort. And with that return comes an unfamiliar peace. Not the peace that comes from everything being perfect, but the peace that comes from no longer needing perfection. You begin to understand why the universe stopped you, why nothing worked no matter how hard you tried, why doors closed, why people left, why the path twisted in ways you didn't understand. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Because now finally your outer life can begin to match your inner truth. And what happens next will not require force. It will require alignment. This is the transformation. Not doing more, but becoming more of who you always were. Do nothing is the most misunderstood part of the secret. It does not mean sit still and let life collapse around you. It does not mean abandon your goals, your dreams, or your responsibilities. It does not mean surrender your power. Do nothing means stop acting from fear. Stop forcing outcomes that aren't meant for you. Stop making decisions from panic, scarcity, or desperation. Stop interrupting your own destiny with anxious movement. When you do nothing, you allow your inner state, not your fear, to guide your next step. You let clarity form before you act. You let intuition rise before you decide. You let opportunities emerge before you chase them. And strangely, this absence of force creates momentum. People appear, paths open, answers arrive, situations resolve themselves without your intervention. You begin to act only when the action feels inevitable, when it feels like a pull, not a push. This is what mystics understood. This is what Jung pointed toward. This is what the universe has been trying to teach you. When your actions come from alignment, they require almost no effort. They unfold naturally, effortlessly, as if life itself is moving through you. Do nothing does not stop your life. It stops your resistance. And once resistance falls away, your path becomes clear. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is protection. When something sacred is forming inside you, it is too fragile to expose to the world. If you speak too soon, the energy evaporates. If you share too early, the fears of others contaminate your clarity. If you reveal your transformation before it stabilizes, you risk being pulled back into who you used to be. So you stay quiet. You let your evolution take shape in the dark. You let it deepen, strengthen, root itself in your being. Because the most powerful changes in your life cannot be announced, they can only be lived. Let the silence hold you until you are unshakable. There will come a day sooner than you think, when you look back and realize that everything that once felt like breaking was actually your becoming. The confusion was guidance. The exhaustion was redirection. The stillness was instruction. The silence was your initiation into a deeper life. You are not lost. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are shedding. You are aligning. You are returning to the person you were always meant to be, the one who moves with clarity, not fear, with intention, not desperation, with presence, not chaos. And from this place, life will begin to unfold in ways that feel almost surreal. Opportunities will appear without being chased. Connections will form without being forced. Peace will settle without being begged for. Because when you stop fighting the current carries you. Don't let this moment dissolve into the noise of your feed, or slip back into the rhythm of everything you scroll past and forget. Because what you just heard wasn't content, it was a mirror, a message, a moment of alignment meeting you exactly where you are. Jung once said that the things we need most come to us disguised as coincidence. Maybe this wasn't coincidence. Maybe this was the version of you that's been trying to wake up, finally reaching through. And if something inside you shifted, even slightly, even for a breath, declare it. Comment below. I surrender. I align. I receive. Not for attention, not for validation, but to signal to your unconscious, this time I choose stillness over struggle. I choose inner truth over outer noise. I choose becoming over forcing. Hit like and subscribe if you're done with quick fixes and surface level motivation and ready to walk deeper into Jungian principles that strip away illusion and return you to yourself. And above all, share this with someone who's drowning in the noise, someone who keeps chasing life instead of hearing their own soul whisper. Because Jung taught us, when you stop looking outward, you finally see inward, and the moment you return to yourself, everything else returns to you. So breathe. Be still. Remember, your awakening isn't ahead of you, it has already begun.